Hi, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. It's really good to have you here. I'm joined by Alistair Grant, Director of Strive Group, and we'll do some introductions in a second, if that's okay, Alistair.
That's great.
Good. And today we are going to give our webinar around getting impact from data, particularly how Strive Group, your company, grew 20% revenue in 3 weeks. So the first thing we want to get to is introductions. Who are we? So Alistair, would you like to tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, John. Yeah, so Alistair Grant, Director of a company called Strive Group. We're based in North Yorkshire, in Harrogate, beautiful spa town, and we are an experience agency. So we deliver brand experience, employee experience, and customer experience, but I'll come on to talk about that a little bit more when we do our case study.
Good, thank you very much indeed. And what's your role there at Strive? What do you do at Strive?
I am a co-founder and director and chief firefighter.
Yeah, good. So looking after optimizing the business and making sure that you're getting the best from your resources and all that good stuff.
That was put very succinctly, John, yes.
Thank you. And I'm John Yates. So I am the general manager for Aible for all our business outside North America. So I look after marketing, partners, service delivery, sales, and ultimately the commercial aspects of our business outside the US. As far as Aible goes, if I do a little bit on Aible then, we were founded by Arijit Sengupta. Arijit sold his last company, it was called BeyondCore, to Salesforce. Those listening probably know it as Salesforce Einstein Discovery, the beating heart of Salesforce's AI opportunity. So Arijit created BeyondCore, sold it to Mark Benioff, and decided that there was a different approach, different way of doing things. So the founders, both Jonathan and Arijit, have had huge experience in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Essentially, when we talk about that, what we're saying is how do we get predictions about the future that are meaningful into people's hands so they can action those predictions? Interestingly, just a bit more about the founders. Arijit teaches AI and market-facing functions at Harvard Business School on their MBA program. And as a business, we have several dozen now patents in review, which is good. And we are also partnered quite prestigiously with the likes of Intel and their Disruptor program, but also with the likes of other large technology organizations who recognize that artificial intelligence, machine learning, optimized predictions are very much at the forefront of where businesses need to be if they want to optimize their resources. The really good news for Aible, and this is just a quick pitch I'm going to do about Aible because this is really about you, Alistair, so just indulge me for a couple more minutes, is that even though we've been growing as a startup for the past nearly 3.5 years, we are competing with some very big names in the use case for AutoML. And really AutoML is enabling companies to do some very quick, rapid optimization of business problems, things like sales optimization, marketing spend optimization, churn identification, and intervention optimization, cash collections, and a vast array of other use cases. Those are probably our core ones. But we do it very, very differently, which is why we're at the top of the Gartner. We're ranked #1 by Gartner in their critical capabilities for cloud AI developer services, and for us to say that we are the best choice for pure business people. So we're trying to bringing AI capability, prediction, optimization capability to business individuals, enabling them to work faster and smarter. We do that because we guarantee impact, and impact means different things to different people. Impact might be increased revenue, or it might be freeing up beds during COVID, or it might be increased profitability or cost savings. Impact means different things to different people. What we're trying to do is put ROI and impact front and center in everything we do. So it's squarely aimed at business people rather than data science teams or analyst teams or IT. Of course, we have a platform, and I'll come to this in a second, a platform that covers all of those personas, but ultimately we believe that AI can deliver impact very quickly. And it's up to those people listening to decide what impact means to them once they've kind of understood what we do. So we have this platform made up of a series of tools. There are actually 4 tools, but I'll talk about 3. We have Sense, and Sense enables people wherever they are on their data journey to understand the relevance of their data for AI and analytics. So very quickly, with a base level, entry level, comma separated value file, CSV file, you can upload it into Aible Sense and see whether it's firstly whether it has AI signal in it. The good news there is if it has AI signal, then it means unless you're using it for artificial intelligence predictions, then you're probably leaving something on the table. Conversely, if it hasn't got AI signal, then it gives you the opportunity to say, look, I'd love to do a project around this, but my data's not quite good enough. That in its basis sense is what Aible Sense does. It does a lot more than that, but ultimately, on the first step to understanding your data and its relevance for analytics and AI, Aible Sense allows you within about 5 to 6 minutes have that understanding and see the first interactions between areas of data that you might not realize had an impact on certain outcomes for your data. Once you've identified this AI signal, we have Aible Explore. Aible Explore, rather like a traditional analytics tool, its job is to surface insight so rapidly so you can see exactly where to focus your business strategically. Unlike traditional analytics, which is searching for a needle in a haystack and digging down, trying to find and support your hypothesis about what you're trying to answer, we liken it to throwing a magnet in the haystack and pulling out those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, most important and relevant items in your data that allows you to very quickly go and make changes and affect change upon your business based on that data and those interactions. And we see that happen with businesses who use Sense and then move to Explore in about 15, 20 minutes, which is radically different from how analysts work today. Both of those are kind of rear-facing. Those are looking at what has happened. Once you have an understanding of your data in Sense and you've explored it and realize there are things you can affect change upon to optimize your resources, then we have Aible Optimize. And Aible Optimize is the engine that creates not just one model for predictive analytics, but hundreds of models. Each model is perfectly optimal for a different set of business circumstances. And I know, Alistair, you enjoy skiing, as do I. So I like my skiing analogy. Traditionally, when data scientists approach an optimization problem, they'll build a model. And that model is to get from A to B. So they do that extremely well. The problem is when they come upon changing circumstances in the ever-changing landscape in the business marketplace, that goes away, that gets pulled away from the strategy they're trying to work on. So things like geopolitical turmoil or recent events around COVID or marketing budget increases or disruptive innovations in the marketplace, that changing landscape happens every single day. So like the skier, going back to the analogy, like the skier at the top of the slope, I vary at the age of 11, I would career down from A to B as fast as possible, limited just by the peals of laughter from my schoolmates at the time. But I would get from A to B very rapidly. And that's what data science does, although it can take 6 to 8 months, 6 to 12 months to build a model, get it working, deploy it. It can take an exceptionally long time. With Aible, what we do, we create hundreds of models for every circumstance. So in my 50s now, as I'm going down that slope from A to B, I'm more experienced as a skier, and I know that I'm not going to be able to hair my way down that mogul field. I'll get down it, but I won't be able to tear down it. And I can see that patch of snow over there is probably covering up some ice. It's going to rain soon. There's a snowboarder going to cut across me. I probably will stop for a bottle of wine and a pizza halfway down. The point is, I am going to get from A to B, but I'm going to optimize my journey based on those situations that are presenting themselves in near real time in front of me to allow me to get a much better way down that mountain intact and on time and enjoying it. And that's what we do. So if your use case is, that's what Aible Optimize does. If your use case is something like, and I won't talk to yours, Alistair, because we'll talk about that in a minute. If it's a student churn, for example, what we might want to do is identify those students that are going to churn in a particular school year and work out how we optimize the intervention program. Is it worth having 9 or 10 people in an international parent experience center, as we do with one of our customers, to call maybe 5,000, 10,000 people who've responded to a net promoter score as a parent? Or is it worth identifying those people who are definitely going to churn, those people who are likely to stay if we can offer them something, or if we can bring them back on track, but with less people. So we're not just predicting who's going to churn, we're optimizing by the profitability of the resources we have to see what's the best way of getting to our target with the resources we have. So that's what we have. And the last bit that isn't on the screen is Aible Monitor, and that's really enabling organizations to see how well these predictions are being used, either in back-end systems like marketing or front-end systems like Salesforce, and how people are using the advice of predictive analytics to make change in line with that whole corporate strategy. And of course, as a new situation presents itself, a new model is chosen. So constantly those models are being self-adjusted, being relevant, and essentially when people are using them at the front end, we're crowdsourcing those results to keep those models in line, to make sure we're staying on our strategy very effectively. So that was a very quick overview of what we did. I did talk about a couple of use cases, but essentially, we do our core use cases extremely well. And once again, it's sales optimization, sales lead scoring optimization, profitability, marketing spend optimization, cash collections, retention, and ideal customer profile. We do this extremely well. What interests me as a salesperson, as a consultative salesperson, is the wider use cases, those things at the edge. And actually, hopefully after this, a lot of people who are watching it can go away and think, actually, I think this might be relevant to what we do. So on screen now, you have, for the Office of the Modern CMO, the ones with red flags are where people like to get started. But actually, that is only one big hit use case where you can then expand out into different use cases and gain that value across the business. So that was a bit long-winded, Alistair. Thank you for indulging me for that time. Why don't we talk a little bit about, or why don't you talk a little bit about what Strive Group does, just the organization as a whole, all the different areas you work in, and then we can go into the case study that we worked on together.
Yeah, I think if I explain who we are and what we do as a business, then and the value and the amount of data that we have coming through our business, that will demonstrate why AI, or how AI can help our business. So Strive Group, Connected Experience Agency, what does that actually mean? Well, as a business, we work in 3 key areas: brand experience, employee experience, and customer experience. And this can cover a variety of work. So brand experience, for example, we work with clients like Papa John's Pizza, creating the environment in a retail outlet, the look and feel of the store. Employee experience, we run global training programs for major organizations such as a global aeronautics manufacturer. And then customer experience, we do everything from outbound contact center work, so standard core outbound call activity, right through to creating full virtual experience showrooms, if you like, for brands such as Volvo. And I think John's got a video that he can show you in a little bit. But as part of our customer experience team, we've got a contact center team. And if I look at the core bit of business that we have, or the sort of entry-level business into working with Strive Group, is outbound contact center type work. And predominantly our business in this area, we work in either property development or automotive. So anybody starting in our business will start on the automotive contact center team. And the contact center team basically call for some manufacturers, but predominantly for retail groups, dealer groups, and calling their customers on behalf of the retailer group to book the cars in for service. So that's almost the starting point in our business. That's where you first come into our business as an employee. And that's where we got interested in what can artificial intelligence do for us as a business. So, for example, we get approximately 10,000 bits at any one time, any 1 week. We'll have about 10,000 bits of data that need calling. And we have a really high quality, invested heavily in an outbound contact center system, CRM system. And we've also got really tight processes, procedures in place to make sure that customers are called on a rota, on a time scale, depending when the actual event is due, so when the service is due, or the MOT, or whatever the work is that's required in that car. So we've always felt we were really well placed, good systems, good processes in place. But we had an awful lot of data that we were calling, a lot of data we received from the retailer groups, we would call and get little outcome from it. We'd have some data that you would call and get great outcomes from it. And you'd get some operators that one day would do really well, or 1 week they do really well, and then the following week they do really badly, and nothing has changed. So something was not quite working for us. And that's where John came in with Aible and artificial intelligence, and how could he help our business. So we ran it as John gave me an offer to run it as a test, basically pay, and if we don't get results, then we'll get a full refund. So I was thinking, well, this is a no-lose situation here. Something will happen. Don't think it'll give us the results that John was promising, and then I'll get my refund. So, and I always like getting a refund from another organization. Unfortunately, I never got my refund because very quickly we started to see a improvement in performance. So we had a process, first couple of weeks, where Aible, John and the team had to understand our data. So they would look at all the data, and in particular the outcomes we got from that data, so previous actions that we made against the data, and that would start to score and rank it. And then they would score all the data we had, and basically come up with a prediction on how likely we are to get a booking from that data. And we implemented this, and scarily, almost in the first hour, we started to see an upturn in performance. And I think on the slide here, it actually says 3 days. So within 3 days, we were seeing the value that we were receiving from scoring the data. So we then created this scenario where we had some really high value data. And funnily enough, and then we could start to look at the quality of the calls that the agents were making. So high value data, the good, well-experienced agents were getting a really high performance from it. Interestingly, though, the newer, the not so experienced agents were getting a high return from it as well. Not quite as high as the experienced agents, but it showed us what the training need was required there.
And what they're actually doing was they were calling a list that was provided to you by this automotive manufacturer, and trying to convert that to a sale, essentially.
Service booking, yeah, sale.
And the alternative was, so if you have one of these types of cars, then you can either go through the manufacturer and pay a certain amount of money, or you go to a local garage and you have your service book stamped as well. That's the alternative.
No, the alternative is, and it's been really relevant over the last couple of years with periods of lockdown, people not using their cars as much. If you were previously doing 10, 12,000 miles in your vehicle and you're getting a service every year, that made sense. All of a sudden you go down to 2,000 or 3,000 miles, but the car still has to be serviced. So the retailer groups were losing massive revenue, the dealerships were losing massive revenue from people not servicing their vehicles on time when they were required. So they employ us as an outside outsourced agency to help generate that revenue back into the business for them. So we call the customers, book it into the retailer for the service, essentially, or whatever the event is that's required in that vehicle.
Yeah, okay.
Rather than leaving it to the customer to contact the retailer. And, as cars get older, people are more likely to move away from the main manufacturer and go to the owner-driver garages, independent garages to get the car service. So it's in the interest of the manufacturer to try and keep these people in there, coming to their own retailers and pay for the servicing, but then also for the sales opportunity at some point in the future.
So it's a little bit about lifetime customer value as well. If you can keep them in the ecosystem, then that becomes more valuable over time, obviously. So I'm jumping ahead now to questions without having them up on screen, but it's interesting, isn't it? Well, when I told this story to other customers, the thing that they throw up to me is, that seems a very short timeline, and in fact, it was only a timeline not in terms of work that had to be done, but just interactions we had. Actually, to look at the data and understand the data didn't take very long at all for us, but actually to get the data from the manufacturer, which we had to do, and to understand your process with CRM, it took a little bit of time. What kind of people did you feel you needed when we first spoke to you, and what kind of people do you have now helping with this? Excuse me.
That is interesting, actually. So I always felt before, well, when we first started talking about this, I felt that, I don't have a data scientist. We don't have data scientists within our business. And there's maybe something that we could have benefited from, but cost outweighed that investment outweighed the potential return we're going to get from it. It's unknown. And actually, we probably wouldn't have seen the result from investing in a data scientist for at least a year. And that's a high investment for a potential return. So we always ran with just a CRM manager and a data team that just basically looked after the process of data in our system, data through the system, and data and reporting back out of the system. So that's essentially what the data team do, manage the quantity and quality of the data. And then we had I felt like a really robust CRM system. But this actually highlighted that, yes, our CRM system was robust, but actually we were doing an awful lot of activity on data that we had very little chance of getting an outcome. And we were then potentially incentivizing, rewarding contact center execs on their activity against data. They had very little chance of getting an outcome. So rather than calling every single bit of data we received into our business, attempting 7 attempts on it and getting nowhere, is it better to focus the team on where we are more likely to get a booking rather than on where we're less likely to get a booking? So get our good people doing the best opportunity more often, and the worst opportunity very little. Now, every single bit of data that we get into our business, we will contact anyway, almost regardless of how it is measured by the Aible scoring. So we'll give it a call. And I think we went through quite a few conversations about whether that would need calling or not. So if something scores really low, scores at, say, score of 5 out of 100, then should we even bother calling it? Now, I felt that we should call it, because actually we do get a result from it. Then it constantly updates the artificial intelligence, and therefore we'll change the parameter somewhere. And the parameters started becoming really interesting as well. So I remember right in the first couple of weeks, we had a scenario where Honda drivers, if they live within 11 miles of the service center, they are more likely to go there to get it serviced. Whereas an Audi driver has to be within 9 miles. And the further away you get from that parameter, the less likely they are to book in. So all this starts to become really interesting, because the information we have on customers is very little. We've got the car they have, we've got when it was last serviced, and we've got the age of the car, and that's about it. There's not obviously the customer's details, but there's not very much else on it. So the outcomes are much more valuable to us in scoring the data than just the data alone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And
sorry.
I was going to say, there was that thing, wasn't there? We've spoken about how, and you touched on it before, that the team were like saying, okay, well, I'll look at the top 25% of these things that are coming up in my CRM, and I'll call them because I know those are going to close. But actually, even if it's got a 30% score, it's still worth calling, because that's a 1 in 3 chance of converting. You so rightly say that gets fed back through the Aible models, because there's continual learning, and actually it gets much more accurate over time.
And that was a really interesting point there. With every step forward, you end up taking a couple of little steps backwards. So we made a massive step forward, scoring the data, having live scoring the data was great. Straight away, within a couple of, straight away we saw results. We saw improved improve results. I think that first week of working with the Aible scoring, we had our best week ever. So straight away, we had this a massive improvement. But then interestingly, we started to see a variance in activity. So if something scored at or had a 90% optimization, then all the agents wanted to score it. But then we look at something with a 30% optimization, and they didn't want to call it anymore. So it was we were almost struggling to get them to do the activity at the lower numbers. The reality is something at 30% chance of booking, one in three customers should be booking for us. So it's still high value and worth us calling. And if I can get our agents to get a 1 in 3 booking rate from all the data they call, then I'm laughing, and our client base is laughing as well. Our customers that we call on behalf of are laughing as well, because they're getting their results.
I think
so. We then, sorry,
I was just saying, it's really interesting because we come across this with our customers, and we always say, we can give you these predictions, but actually you've still got to affect the change upon that, and that's going to be a cultural thing and change management thing in your organization. In fact, we didn't really do much on that, did we, during implementation? We just had it going, and that's why it threw up this anomaly that actually there was a big lift and then a slight dip, and we then understood that dip was because of people deciding not to call those 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chances, whereas before they might have called them 5, 6, 7 times and got a hit.
Yeah. That was the learning from it. So we learned from that. We actually, you asked earlier, what are some of the changes we've made? And one of the changes is to create a position purely for a data person, a CRM person, that utilizes the artificial intelligence, looks at the data, and starts to create our CRM system to work with the knowledge of the artificial intelligence. So for example, whereas before we always called data, depending on the client, anywhere between 5 attempts to 7 attempts, now we have data that comes in that scores really lowly. You know, you can imagine, my business is based in Harrogate, but we had a car retailer we were working for in Harrogate, and the customer we were calling lived in Aberdeen. The chance of that customer booking the car in for a service in Harrogate is fairly low, if not non-existent. But it's still important we give that customer a call, because we provide a customer experience for the client we're calling on behalf of, and that is somebody that may potentially still have loyalty towards that retailer. So it's still worth us giving them a call. It's probably not worth us trying them 7 times. And if all those ones that score really lowly, we try 7 times, that's taken up a massive amount of activity, and that activity could be better spent on the higher levels. So now what happens is, with this person that we've employed is tasked with changing our CRM system so the data gets scored, and that scoring dictates the contact strategy for that customer. So the higher the score, the closer together the initial call attempts are, and the more attempts there will be on that customer. The lower the score, the further apart the call attempts are, and the less number of call attempts there will be on that customer. And that's where we're getting our true increase in performance. So I think in the first week we had a massive improvement, then it dropped down because people would almost, we were having to, I don't want to say force them to call, but we're really having to be, it's very obvious that their attitude had changed because something had scored on a lower number. So now the scoring isn't even visible. It's just the customer's in front of them. They call that customer, they do a great job. And that's where we've got easily our 20% improvement in performance from our activity, which then led us to a couple of different opportunities. Do we reduce the team, or do we keep performing at 20% up? And I think that's depending on how your business is set and structured. It means you can start to target your, how many employees do you need, what size of workforce do you need to achieve that outcome that you need, or is it more about improving better? And we've got a mix of both, actually.
Yeah, I think you told me that you redeployed some of those resources onto other accounts, other opportunities, and kept it quite high because you wanted to, because you wanted to impress that particular retailer you were working at, that automotive company you were working on, with continued excellence. I think that's what you
And,
said.
and
Not
actually,
not putting
there's
words
other
in your
learnings
mouth.
sorry?
Not putting
No,
words in your mouth, but I think that's what you said.
but there's other learnings from it as well. So we now start to use the quality of data that somebody was calling and their ability to get an outcome from that data as part of their personal development and training needs. But then also we can sometimes find our lowest performers in terms of outright volume are actually much better than we would initially have thought because of the type, because we can measure them against the type and quality of data that we're receiving from their particular client base. So it gives us a chance to now look at people and where we move them in our business and where they're best suited. And it sort of brings it's a bit of a jigsaw that I didn't know was missing, but now we have it. The picture makes complete sense.
Brilliant, thank you. That's a great point to actually go through the questions that we had, because we've answered a lot of those. We've been going along and just chatting away. But if we just go through some of those bigger questions, you know, what made you invest in predictive technology and AI to drive your business?
I think initially, again, it goes back to that point I just made. It's a bit of a jigsaw I didn't know that we needed, and it's probably your persistence, John, that made me invest in it. But you had this great offer of invest and we don't get a result from it, we'll get a refund. So that was the initial. I didn't know we needed AI, if I'm honest. I didn't link the artificial intelligence data science or data scientist. So I didn't know what I didn't know at that stage. I think that first month's investment showed value straight away, and then sort of directed, well, actually, now we need this. Now that I know it's available, I need it. And then we started to structure our business more around it.
So what
and
I've
this
heard,
is just one part of our business as well.
So what I've heard is I wouldn't say badgering, I'd say my passion and tenacity to help companies is what I think you meant to say. Those are the words you wanted to use.
Right? Is that not the acronym for badger?
By passion and tenacity to help organizations, but also, I mean, you know, having that opportunity to do what we call an immediate impact that first month. It isn't a refund. Exactly what it is it's risk-free. So it is a contract, you sign up for a month, but you don't have to pay if you don't see value. That's what the offer is. But yeah, so that helps, doesn't it? Because you don't want to take that risk. We take the risk to help you. We want to show you value. So it gets to that point. And we've spoken about personas, but being data ready, that's a big thing we get from people. You know, I've been in the data analytics industry for about nearly 30 years. And this is what I always get: my data's not ready yet. How would you see that when we first spoke?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever have said our data wasn't ready. I think if your data is really ready, you probably, for us, if our data was really ready, we probably wouldn't have needed this. If that makes sense. But yeah, in a way, the data is the data that we have, and how can we? You know, I've got to be careful how I say this, but the quality of the data we get varies massively. You know, we'll get data that the retailer hasn't seen the customer for 7 years. The chance of that customer still owning the car is probably fairly limited. And then we'll get data that that the retailer has sold the car to the customer, it's been back in for service, and they buy parts from that retailer as well. So very loyal existing customer to one that we have no idea if that customer even has the car. So yeah, our data is really varies in quality.
And didn't we also did, so I seem to remember our customer success team also did a little bit of extra work around the distance to retail, or distance to closest forecourt, whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
Distance as the crow flies. That was one of the variables they looked at.
Okay, good. All right.
All that was really, you know, all really interesting and really valuable. It's just that, you know, as a business, we don't blame the data, and that's when we say, did you ever feel that you're not data ready? We do our best to remove any culture of people blaming the data. It's not the data. It's down to our ability, our enthusiasm, our quality of our call, the quality of our people. And then the artificial intelligence just gave us that direction as to where we need to do the activity.
Okay, so the usual answer we get from prospects and customers is we haven't got enough data, we have dirty data, we haven't got enough of it, it's in the wrong shape, it's in different systems. And a lot of people say that we didn't feel data ready, but you're in a very good position, very strong position, because that data is being provided by a global, in some instances by a global manufacturer to serve a particular purpose, and you've worked with them a long time, so that's good. What skills did the business team need? Well, we kind of spoke about that, didn't we? Because during the immediate impact process, we gave you one of our data scientists, our customer success data scientists, to help through that. But from your side, you had a kind of a data engineer or a...
Yeah, we had data managers, and your data scientists held our hands through the whole process, made it really simple, really straightforward to operate. So skills, we did not require any new skills. It was just our learning and understanding.
And what about now? Are you taking on anyone new? Are you looking at changing that, augmenting the team?
Yeah, as I said, we've taken on one person whose now sole responsibility is to look at our systems that we have in place, whether our CRM systems, whether they're ours or our clients, and then how do we improve those systems to accommodate the Aible optimization, and without it having any negative effect on the person doing the call, only a positive effect. So they'll look at data. So that will run through our business now. So the contact center team that are doing outbound service calls, that's the starting point. We then look at every single bit of data we get into our business and the effect it has. So whether we've run customer service teams for a major global bank, and the data we get from them, how do we improve the quality of calls we would do there. We also look after corporate companies' databases for them and do and manage their inbound, outbound activity on their corporate databases. So again, we're going to start to look at how do we use Aible to improve the service we offer our clients.
Yeah, and I think you said something to me, didn't you? You said we well, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but something around aspiring to be an AI-enabled offering to our...
Yeah, I forgot about that, John. Thanks for putting those words in my mouth. So, yeah, it's now when we're pitching or presenting to potential new clients, we actually lead with artificial intelligence and the relationship we have with Aible as one of the reasons why you should work with us. So if you're coming on board with us as a potential client, then you're going to benefit from Aible as well as part of the service that we offer. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And kind of that was the what's next for Strive Group. The fact that you're going to look at other areas in which to use this, that you have looking after the data, that you're taking new people on board, that you are as a concept, you're now AI enabled and you lead with that. Any other big things on the horizon?
Yeah, we work with, one of the areas we work in is creating virtual environments for businesses to meet and engage with their customer base. So we can create a virtual environment for a client, and whether it, for example, could be for a student accommodation, high-end student accommodation, you can send the students to the website. From the website, you can go into this virtual world. You can walk around the whole accommodation. You can select the apartment you want, the interior finish you want, and if you want to, you can then engage with a customer experience executive, an inside sales team person, whatever title you want to give these people, but they can meet you in the environment and walk you around and help you choose what it is that you need. John's showing you one that we created for Volvo for the launch of the C40 here in the UK. The beauty of this is you go through from experience of product, build it up to the specification you want. Fortunately, there wasn't a great deal of options. It was fully spec'd already, so it was pretty much choosing your color and exterior color and interior color, and then you go straight through to purchase the vehicle. So the scenario I was talking about, student accommodation, we can do that. As part of that, though, we're building this mass of data. Students are going on, looking at the accommodation. We're starting to build up a pot of data, which we can then we can utilize Aible to help create our contact strategy to re-engage with those people, and then also to re-engage with them later on.
Yeah, good. Sorry, I had forgotten that video beforehand, so that was the perfect time to bring it in. I'll just skip back to where we were. What was next? Now we're bound to have some questions, and I'm sure people listening will be happy to email those in. You can email me at john@aible.com, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Just listen, a massive thank you, Alistair. I know we've worked very closely on this with you and your teams. It's been a brilliant experience working with you, and long may we serve you. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Presence in the post.
Thank you.
That's good. And I think just as a last, as we wrap this up in the last couple of minutes, you know, we'd mentioned this immediate impact program that Aible run, which is a month-long timetable program, usually finishes actually in 2-3 weeks now. And you sign up for it, and you have a business problem, you find the data, and it's about 6 to 8 hours of your company's time, and we do the rest, and we answer a business problem. And if at the end of that month you don't see value, then you don't have to pay. That's the immediate impact program. We're coming up to the end of the year now, and we've been working very closely with Intel. And unfortunately for Alistair, this wasn't available at the time, but we work very close with Intel as a technology partner with them. And we have some spots available as we come to the end of the year for them to actually pay and sponsor one of these immediate impact programs, or several of these. We've done about 23, 24 so far. What that means is that you, at the end of the process, all you have to do is anonymously say, and we give you the information for it, this is how many models were created, this is how quickly it ran, and that's it. You don't really have to give much else. Some companies that we work with do, they tell the company name and the benefits that they've had and the ROI, but actually it can be anonymized as well. So the offer at the end of this, and thank you so much for attending, those of you who did on the day today, is please get in touch at enable.aible.com/guaranteed impact, and I'm sure we'll send out an email to you after this with this on. If you sign up now, then we can guarantee we can save one of those spots for you. But just to reiterate, it's an amazing opportunity to get a business problem solved in either sales, marketing, customer service, churn, cash collections, or something completely left field, that you can go back to your business and say, we are doing this essentially for free with sponsorship from Intel, and here is a solution to a business problem where we can focus resources more effectively and bring more revenue, profitability, or cost savings to the business. So look, once again, Alistair, thank you so much. Absolutely delight and pleasure working with you and speaking to you today. And thank you to everyone in the audience, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scene.